Welcome to this our latest American Mussar community gathering. Today we are going to be spending a third week on equanimity, and we will start the way that we always do with a short meditation. Hey Beth, hey Harry, welcome. So I
Thank
invite
you.
you to close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling and exhaling, if thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass, like watching a car pass by on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. All you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Okay. Well, welcome, Ted and Martin and Marjorie. Always love to see who appears when I open my eyes from the meditation. So let's jump in to our exploration of equanimity. So last week we talked about taking on an equanimity practice. So if you'd like to update us on if you try to practice and how it went, that would be great. I know for me, I wanted to do more meditation and I have done more. I haven't gotten to every day, but I would say about every other day I've been doing some kind of meditation, which is good. And then from the email today, I wrote about this idea that we can sort of try to actively diminish the bad. How can we maintain our equanimity by not pouring gas on the fire? So you can talk about that idea. You can update on your practice. Um, so I'm going to stop the share and open things up. Yes, Karen.
So I came across a quote in a book here from a philosopher named Marcus Aurelius. I don't know if you people are familiar with him.
Emperor of
And
Rome.
it really has to do with equanimity. Um, he says, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it.
Hmm.
And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. And there have been several occasions when I was really thinking about that whatever has happened in my life, but outside of me, uh, that is causing a negative emotion, that the pain might really be worse because my thinking about when I say estimate it, that this may last for longer than I think. It may be worse than I think.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's a good way for me of looking at something and saying, you know what, it may really not be as bad as that. And that's a good way to help uh, maintain the balance so that I have like a lower limit that you don't go below,
Hmm.
and maybe an upper limit that I don't want to go above. So it's that anything being distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to that thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And that was a new thought for me this week. That has been helpful.
Great. Well, what serendipity that that sort of showed up in the week that you're working on it. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Karen. First time I think we've had Marcus Aurelius show up in a Mussar class, and he fits right in. So thank you, Beth.
I wanted to practice meditation more and actually practice it rather than just once in a while trying and being discouraged. And um, someone recommended an app. I found a different app which was free, but from a nonprofit foundation. It's called Meditio. And mainly what I wanted was the timer. And it has been wonderful. I started 5 minutes. I almost skipped a day, but I have done all 7 days and I'm up to 10 minutes. And it has really, really helped a lot. So that has been wonderful. And I liked, your image of pouring gas on the fire because it's something I don't want to do. And Marcus Aurelius was, I guess, one of the better Roman emperors. Hey, go figure.
Yeah.
Yes or no, by the way.
Okay. He said some good things.
He said some good things. He killed a lot of Christians.
Well.
Can't have everything.
Nobody's perfect. Okay. Wendy.
Well, I was supposed to do a little bit more listening. And so like active listening, and that is so much broader than I've ever thought of before, because it's actually Shema. It's actually open yourself to hearing rather than just active listening. And that just happened to me. And like you, Karen, I came across a quote. It is in a book called The Weight of Ink by Rachel Kaddish, the historical novel. But the quote was something, this man who's doing this research with these old documents, their rule in that room is never to have a pen or pencil. He had a pencil in his pocket. And so the lady, Patricia, the librarian, comes along and just snatches the pencil. And he wasn't too happy about it, right? He goes, my own humor righted me. I'm like, oh, that is so cool. Because I think I have a sense of humor and I can do that. And then I was very challenged because our Mussar group, Temple, their last class was yesterday, and I was just so sad. I could just barely talk. I couldn't talk. I just listened, and I thought, this is good for me. But in reading Greg's email, I found something I could actually do about my own sadness, because my equanimity was disturbed by sadness, rather than you think of sort of equanimity getting disturbed by your anger or, some kind of other reaction. But I never thought about sadness being something that disturbs my equanimity until yesterday. And when Greg's email came, it was like the shining light, because I could send it to my rabbi and say, look, Rabbi Greg, and by the way, we've been using Greg's book. She's starting a new class with Greg's book. And I said, yeah, I'm not sure if that follows. It's just let your Mussar class go and then do another one. It might be okay. But since I now have given her that book, maybe that will open up some kind of thing for her to look at, and maybe we can do that, or maybe she can encourage people who were in the class to get a Havruta or something, to just let it go after 6 months of, I think, pretty hard work. Like, wow. That's like cleaning your whole entire house and the company doesn't come. Well, no, but anyway. But thanks, Karen, for your quote too, because these quotes that we get can sometimes be really powerful. So I'm
Wendy, in
more.
response, in response to you, Wendy, I want to say thank you, but also my comments really pertain to something that you said. You were talking about sadness, and I was relating this to when you lose somebody that you really love, and you are so emotionally distressed that just puts you somewhat out of balance with your other traits.
Thank you.
And I will say that is very understandable too. I mean, grief is its own thing and it has to run its own course. So that's, the equanimity piece is being at peace with that. It's like the hard part is, wearing my grief counselor hat. We don't want to rush ourselves or get down on ourselves because we're not able to do more. I'm just tired all the time. What's wrong with me? And that's where we're getting out of. That's where the equanimity can go off and not being like, oh yeah, I just need to rest a lot because I'm going through a lot right now. Does that make sense? I may not have fully understood your point, Karen.
Yes, I was just thinking that grief can put people into a different mood and maybe unable to accomplish things that they really want to, and because they can't do that, they're just feeling out of sorts, which could be out of balance. Things are not getting done. That makes order difficult, and they may not be reacting to people the way other people expect, and maybe they're naturally kind to others and they're just snapping, and so any of those traits could be out of balance because of this. And so definitely, I agree with Wendy. It's not just anger, it's sadness. It could be any other emotions that can just kind of unbalance our equanimity.
Yeah, and understandably so. Yeah.
And we're probably never totally in balance, but I guess the best we can hope for is that the balance that we have is good. So if we're being a little more on one side of the spectrum with one trait and a little to the other side with a different trait, we may still feel in balance.
Thank you, Karen. Sue.
Well, all this talk, I had a real life example of the sadness infecting the equilibrium where I had a very close friend who I would work out with every morning died. And I went on vacation and I was taking care of my parents, but when I came back to the place where she was always beside me and she wasn't there. And the grief kind of overwhelmed me and I just started getting upset. And I had two observations. It definitely upset my equanimity. And then I just needed to do something. I went to see there's this amazing tulip house in Minneapolis where this woman planted 1,000 tulips on her corner. And I drove all the way in to see this and I got there and there was a sign that said, that we're planting this to brighten your day. And it was just an amazing moment. So I was kind of moping the whole day. Do I want to go? Do I want to do this? I didn't want to do anything, but getting myself out of that grief and going to see that was great. But then I thought also, I was upset when I was on the treadmill and I was crying. And I thought, well, that was good too, because I need to go through that. I need to feel those feelings. And so I was glad of both of those things that I was able to, but it definitely upset my whole equilibrium. But, so that's what I was thinking when you were talking about the sadness affecting the equilibrium.
Thank you, Sue, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Anyone else care to share or comment, or we can go a little bit deeper? Right, let's do that. Oh, Ted.
Sorry, just got in there, huh? Under the wire.
There is no wire.
Oh, okay. With Michael last week, I was talking about how my work that I needed to do was to be more loving kindness, um, and I come from that from backwards almost. I'm much more laid back and will let things go by. Um, and that doesn't really give the benefit to the person. Um, I don't get upset at the people who are screaming at me. I sort of understand that they're working just as hard as I am, and probably harder, um, just to stay still, just to maintain their mode, whatever that may be. Um, and my attitude is usually not kindness, but not getting involved either. I sort of shrug my shoulders and say, it's their problem,
Mm.
um, which doesn't give people the benefit of the doubt. Um, and I'm not being helpful, although there are other times I am, but those are more special situations when I recognize somebody is really struggling. The mere fact that they're yelling at me, I tend to ignore. Um, and I haven't done very well at that. I have to tell you the truth. I tried, and it's just easier just to shrug and walk away, or just shrug and say it's your problem. Um, Interestingly enough, though, without really remembering that you spoke about it, um, I have been troubled by, oh, big word I'm going to use, and I don't mean it as bad as it's going to sound, existential dread. I'll wake up in the night uh, in a panic, and it's not about anything in particular. There's nothing that's really bothering me. And I find that meditation really helps for that. Box breathing, deep breaths, visualizations. Sooner or later, I end up going to sleep again. But I guess that was it.
Well, thank you, Ted, and thank you for sharing that. And sometimes we can learn more from trying a practice that's really hard and doesn't go well than from, a practice that is a slam dunk and isn't any kind of a challenge. I remember very clearly my first go around with Mussar was taking a class from the Mussar Institute called Everyday Holiness. And for honor, it was praise three people a day. And I couldn't do it. I mean, I really could not. And that was such an eye opener for me. And I still think about that and realizing that, like, that was um, a cornerstone, like, soul trait that I'm challenged with, which it wasn't even on my radar before. So I I really appreciate the work you put in giving it a try. And I hope that that's can be a source of reflection and growth for you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, this seems like Ted's comment seems like kind of a nice um, segue into let's look at this uh, bottom bullet first. May I have a volunteer to unmute and read it?
I love this one. I'll read it. As long as one lives a life of calmness and tranquility in the service of God, it is clear that one is remote from true service.
Thank you, Wendy. So, service of God, can mean a lot of things. We all could be at different point, different beliefs or ideas about the divinity. It might be service of others, it might be service of the world, or service of, something bigger than ourselves. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to put this in the chat. And I'd love to hear before we even talk about reactions, what is Rabbi Salanter arguing? Yeah, Martin.
That quote says, if you're in the service of God, you're away from true service. So what is true service? Isn't true service a good goal to reach?
Well, it's talking about if you're living a life of calmness and tranquility, serving God,
Yeah.
he seems to be saying you're missing something. It's
What?
not.
So if you're
The word-
serving, yeah, does it say if you're serving God, you're missing something? Yeah.
Well, if you're living a life of calmness and tranquility,
Yeah, in the service of God.
yeah, yeah. So it's a little puzzling. I hear your puzzlement. Let's hear what others have to say. Beth, what do you think he's talking about? What does he mean by this true service thing? And
I think he means that if you're doing it with your whole heart, sometimes you're going to lose it. For me, that's what it means. That if I'm calm all the time, I'm not putting enough of myself into it, because if myself is in it, my feelings are going to get stepped on. That's that's my weakness, and sometimes I lose it. Right now, I'm selling some things on Craigslist, not because I need the money, but because I need the human contact. I have a tendency to shut myself away, and by having people contact me and want to come over, and I get to talk to them a little bit and interact, and I thought I was doing so well, and then somebody comes today and looks at something and goes, oh, it's like I photograph everything from every possible angle, and then they go, there's no wheels on it. Well, I'm going, yeah, you didn't look at the pictures. But so I lost it a little bit, but I finally said, well, just take it. You don't have to pay anything. If you think you can use it, go ahead. And because, I'm maybe that's not a perfect example, because part of my motive is to do this for my own well-being. But if I'm really trying to serve God with my whole heart, I think I've got to go overboard a little bit sometimes, one way or another.
yeah, thank you, Beth. Yeah, I think a lot of good points there. Let's hear from Michael.
Yeah, along those same lines, to me it means I have to get my emotional hands dirty. And it made me think in terms of when I first read your post about not putting gas in the fire, I thought to myself, I'm actually pretty good at that. But now I'm thinking, well, maybe the reason I'm really good at that is because I fear confrontation. Maybe it's not about calm at all. Maybe it's about something entirely different. So it's not the behavior that's important, but the motivation behind the behavior. And I think that's, for me anyway, that's what this quote is trying to get at.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Maybe if we're calm all the time, that's a red flag. Who would have thought? Wendy.
Well, I think it has to do a little bit with what Karen was talking about, with kind of choosing your reaction in a way, because if you are privileging calmness and tranquility and you're into service, there's going to be certain challenges there. And if you say, well, I got to stay calm and tranquil no matter what, and something comes up, then you may not be able to be empathetic. You might not be able to use your energy towards service, and you might not get involved at all. Like Michael was saying, you're not going to get dirty. You're not going to get your emotions in there, because it's like almost a lack of humility in a way. If you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, I think you're saying you're not I might guess that you're saying you're not taking up enough space. You're sort of staying contracted, so you're not exposed to things that might
Yeah,
be.
you're not invested at all, really.
Yeah. Oh, I'll
Over
just write a
here, you're in
check
the
to the
common.
food shelter, but I'm not actually going to go and serve food to homeless people because that might be too upsetting. Even though that I'm just using this as an example that might apply to myself, because it's just too upsetting. So there, even though that one-to-one human contact is really what can move the needle. I mean, of course, money is important, but that sort of human contact can be really, really helpful, but it's also can be challenging. As someone who's speaking is profoundly uncomfortable in like homeless shelters or doing things like that. But I know that I could be having an impact if I did some work in that area. Karen.
I have two thoughts. The first is the word indifference. Um, if we're going to try to make the world a better place, um, indifference doesn't let us put our heart into anything. And I'm also really big on visuals. And so I was thinking about putting my arms around someone for a hug and giving them a bear hug. There's a big difference, a weak handshake and a strong handshake. So I think I'm really just saying in a different way what everybody else is saying is that service to God is leaving the world a better place, even if it's our own corner of the world, than when we entered it. And in order to do that, it would be very difficult for something not to strike an emotion or a passion. And I think that moving through with calmness and tranquility, kind of on a straight line, is just like being indifferent. You can do something, but it doesn't really matter. Your heart's not in it.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. All right, Martin. So having heard from a lot of the community, where are your thoughts now?
Well, I appreciate everything Michael said, and he put it, they can put your emotions online. That's a good phrase. And Karen, and thanks for your comments on that too. And I understand, and I agree with your interpretation of that sentence. So thanks for that. I appreciate that. Good.
Thanks, Martin. Marjorie.
I've been thinking this is an interesting statement. And I have been thinking, I think about people who actually live in calmness and tranquility in the service of God. That is all they do. They cloister themselves away, they're praying, they're davening, whatever they're doing, but they're not really connecting with that, the Tselem Elohim element. And that to me is passion. If you're missing a passion about like tikkun olam, repairing the world, then you got get out there. Like somebody said something about getting their hands dirty. I think you got it. It's not easy. It's not easy, but I think that is truly godliness, is just dealing with humanity, and it's not always pretty. But again, you got to stay, you can't go into a really devastating situation and just like, lose it, which I probably would, just out of empathy for this situation. You got to hold it together and just, do the work. It's actually doing God's work, not just shuckling, praying, which is great. I mean, I think
Yeah. I mean, you're using
there's
this
got
as
to
a
be the
comparative
balance.
example, but
There's got to be that balance between actually, between prayer and taking it out of yourself, and that's it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, still like equanimity is still like one of my challenging midot
Mhm.
after all these years.
It is a challenge for sure.
Mhm.
And I'm also reminded of a couple other examples, like NASA used to say that if a rocket never blows up, we're not trying hard enough. You know, you don't want a person in the rocket, or if we never fail, I guess they would say, there is a certain maybe that's a bad example. And now I forgot my other example. So, okay, let's look at that other quote on the slide and talk about that in conversation with this first one we've been looking at. Can someone please unmute
I can
and
do it.
hey,
I admire the ideal of equanimity, of responding to whatever arises from a place of centered acceptance and calm. As long as I do my best to be the kind of person I mean to be, to serve God and my communities in the ways I strive to serve, then that's what matters most. If I focus on my connection with something greater than myself, then I can handle things which seem in my limited understanding to be good or bad with equal grace and presence. Oh, this is from, I like her, the Velveteen Rabbi,
Yeah.
Rachel Barenblatt.
yes. Thank you, Sue. Okay, so what is Rabbi Barenblatt sort of telling us here? There's a couple of ideas. We'll put this into the chat. What are some of the elements of equanimity? There's a lot of pieces here. What's a piece that sort of stands out for you? So I saw Marjorie and then Beth and then Sue.
Her first statement, I admire the ideal of equanimity, not saying that I practice the ideal, but you start off by really analyzing, looking at admiring it, and then picking it and seeing what parts work best for you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like her too. She's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I love that framing of this as an ideal because we've all talked about this is really hard and we can't even, I spent 10 years thinking equanimity was about tranquility or calm, and then I ran into that last quote and I'm like, what? So yeah, so thinking about this as an ideal, something that we're striving for, very powerful. Beth and then Sue.
Um, the idea of a shaliach, or I'm not a messenger so much as an ambassador, a representative, um, like um, uh, somebody was sent to get Isaac a wife, and maybe Eleazar,
Mhm.
and he was deputized to act on behalf and bring back a bride. That's a huge decision to make for somebody who's not even there, or the parents who have just sent him off. But if instead of taking it personally, if I say, I'm only here as God's messenger, I'm here on behalf of God to do his work, then when I don't take it personal, it's easier for me to say, well, they're not offending you, they're offending God. And I think some prophet said that somewhere in the scriptures.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, so I think Sue is next and then Ted.
I was looking at the part of the statement that said, if I focus on my connection with something greater than myself, and that spoke to my example earlier about going outside and seeing the tulips. I remember actually, during COVID, worried about that, but I go outside for a walk. Just to me, being in nature helps me with I was going to say equilibrium. I meant equanimity. But it takes me out of my funk, and then I don't have to worry or be in my head, and I'm outside. And so that's what when I read that, I thought, if I focus on my connection with something greater than myself, I can handle things which seem in my limited understanding, it was more about, me and my head, what I'm thinking, to be good or bad with equal grace and presence. And I think of the presence of being in front of these gorgeous tulips, which were every single color and variety, incredible creations of God. and it took me away from that. So that's what struck me.
Thank you, Sue. Ed.
I'm sort of troubled by that second half as the reason why. So, if I focus my connection with something greater than myself, that's where my trouble is. I'm not sure why I need to focus on something greater than myself in order to do something that's good or bad, or to do something with equal grace. I sort of know what is good or bad based upon empathy. Do not do unto somebody else what you don't want done to you.
Well, one thing I totally hear you, and one thought that comes to mind is a quote from Rabbi Elliot Lopian. Sometimes the largest distance in the universe is between the head and the heart. We know what the
right.
right thing to do is, but can we do it?
And why is God important in that? I'm Granted, I may not have the ability to do what I want to do. I admire people who can do what they want to do. But if I know what it is, I don't see where God is helping me in this situation. That came out wrong. I don't see where the concept of God is helping me in that. Uh, so I wake up every morning. I have four prayers. Everything else doesn't really matter. One of them is the Modeh Ani, and the other one is God is giving me everything that I need. Shasali Kotsarki, that He has given me everything that I need. I believe that. I believe that God has given me everything that I need. I may fail. There may be stuff out there in the world that affects me, and I can't get over it. But I believe that God has given me everything I need.
Mhm.
It's up to me to do the work. Relying on God bothers me somehow. I'm
Mhm.
not sure how.
Okay.
It's for me to do the work.
But isn't it God's work?
I question that. I question that it's God's work because I know what's good and bad. Based upon empathy, I know what's good and bad. I wouldn't want that done to me. Um, why would
And
I do that to anybody?
there's no right or wrong answers, and it is perfectly
Right. Yeah.
understandable that this would not fit or work for you. And it sounds like you have a framework where all of with different places with God and God's role in the world. I might wonder, though, I will just leave you with this nugget to ponder, if maybe one of the things that you were given was the ability to ask for help.
Oh yeah. Oh, when I wake up at night with that dread that I was talking about, the first person I speak to is God,
Mhm.
and I ask for help. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Ted. I saw,
Sure.
was there another hand in there somewhere? Wendy? Yes.
See if I can do this.
There you go. We hear
I,
you.
I feel what you're saying, Ted. I feel what you're saying. But I looked at this and I thought of my reaction to some of the traits, and we're going to practice them. And I'm like, yes, I totally love this trait. I can do this. And I go on and I have this great heart ready to do it. But I think that she sort of sets it. I like her because I can understand why she's called the Velveteen Rabbi, because she sets it on its head. It's like, okay, I really admire this ideal of equanimity and of responding to do whatever arises from the place of centered acceptance and calm. And then she does all this stuff, but something's going to come up, and it's going to be like she's going to hit the wall. But then she has put in her dependence, her connection with something greater than herself, be it God, whatever God is to you. And that makes it so she can handle it, because every time it doesn't fail, I leave here and go, yes, I'm on my way, skipping along, because, I do have enthusiasm. And then I'm challenged with that trait. And I have to, I have to turn for help. I have to get help, just like what I was saying about how even if the help comes from some kind of a quote from a book or Marcus Aurelius or anybody, or just something someone says, it's there for you if you focus on it, if you know that connection, because it's hard. These traits are not easy, but to me, if it's easy, please let me know. I'll copy what you do. That's kind of what I saw from her. It was almost like a but, I'm always hearing that from people. We're going to do this, but, and
I like the way she writes, and I like the way she uses I language, because each of us, we look at different people's perspectives, but at the end of the day, we need to find our own path. And for some people, this is like, okay, I could use a piece of this. And for other people, it's like, no, that's not landing for me at all. So I'm realizing that today is a little bit like prayer and God heavy, which is unusual for American Mussar, but our breakout room is the discussion is inspired by this story about a traveler who arrived in Frankfurt and realized he lost his wallet. And he went to a local rabbi, and the rabbi told him, don't worry, your money will be found. But first recite the morning prayers. And while the man was praying, he suddenly remembered where he had left his wallet. And when he informed the rabbi that the money was found, the rabbi said, of course you found it. I told you to pray because prayer restores your composure, giving you peace of mind to remember what you had forgotten. And I've certainly been in that space where I'm just totally flustered. And then if I can get centered, I can sort of figure out what a solution is. And so prayer may or may not be part of a solution for you, but the question is, what is your solution? With your partner in the breakout room, what is it that you do that can help you restore your composure or get back to a little bit more of a state of equanimity? So while you're pondering that, I'm going to open the breakout rooms. I'll stop the recording.
Well, that's
Hey everyone, welcome back.
Sorry.
no, Anita, wasn't that okay?
I thought the same thing.
You probably get that.
Famous name.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, it's my married name. It was her maiden name.
Okay.
Different.
Okay, so how are those? Would anyone care to share what maybe some tactics for regaining one's composure, or some things that work for you, or other insights that you had during the breakouts?
Okay.
Yes, Wendy, and then Ted.
I got to be with Anita Hill. We both have prayer as a staple, and we come at prayer in different ways, through song, through dance, and through Hebrew, especially Hebrew song, and it's wonderful.
Hmm.
We're like twins.
I'm teaching a class on Zionism now, and some of the early Zionists, for them it was about culture. And if you create this settlement, like just culture would radiate out like around the world. And I think some of that vision has been realized with Israel and Israeli music and dance and other things that does, have an influence. And it's really quite wonderful. So thank you. We'll hear Ted and then Anita.
I was with Sue and it was great. And we spoke about the fact that, and I've mentioned this before, what brings me a lot of equanimity is not believing everything that I think. I just because something pops into my head, it's not necessarily true. In fact, it's usually not true. And it's peaceful knowing that, oh, there's this noise going on over there. And it's not, the noise is not me.
Yeah.
The noise is brought on by Freud and all his reasonings and all the psychology that's involved and the reactions but it's just noise. It's not who I am, right? And
Thank you, Ted.
right.
Anita.
Yeah, what I was going to say is one of the things that talked about is that learned it when counting the Omer, that is the Anna Bachoach prayer, is in there from if you use an Omer counter from like Chabad or one of some of the other ones also have it as well. And it's also set to music and it's so beautiful. And I just find it like, especially at night, it just listening to it just calms me. So it's part of, kind of my own routine, like with the bedtime Shema, before retiring at night.
Love it. Thank you, Anita. Okay, well, we're going to give Anita, we'll give Beth the last word here, and then we'll do our closing.
Just a quick one. I was with Martin, and he reminded me that humor is a wonderful way to get back your equanimity.
Thank you, Beth. Great reminder, Martin. Thank you for passing that on, Beth. All right, friends. Well, it's time to close our sacred space for the week. So I invite you once again to close your eyes. Taking a nice leisurely breath. A leisurely exhale. Envision yourself as a tree growing by the river, nourished by the waters of the river. Give you strength, but also flexibility. That when the winds come, you can bend. And when someone is climbing on you, you're strong enough to withstand it. And if it's a moment of stress, maybe you can take a little extra drink from the river to help you get through that. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.